Hello, everyone, and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host, Nick Ozerak, and it's good to have you with us tonight. I'm excited about this build. This is one I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's great to have you along for the ride. We are, of course, building, as we do, a train layout in Trainz with a Z19. And tonight, we're going to be building a division point in N scale. So I hope you're ready with your mathematics skills, because we're going to division. Specifically, we are building what was originally billed as the Ozark lines, created by Andy apologies if I get the last name wrong. Sperandeo. I am really sorry. Andy's no longer with us, so I'm afraid that I really don't know how to pronounce his last name. But Andy was a tremendous, I believe he was a former editor of Model Railroader magazine, and a tremendously skilled track plan designer. So we are building the Ozark lines in N scale. And the reason that we're doing this, in part, is to address a couple of things that I have in my own mind that rattle around. And I think a lot of us can kind of sympathize with what you do if you have a bunch of locomotives of a favorite railroad and you're not sure how to build a layout, especially if you don't have a lot of space, that caters to all of these different types of locomotives in one fell swoop. And that kind of ties into with today's sponsor, which is, if I point the right way, K&L Trainz, creators of amazing models for trains with a Z. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So his most recent creations, the Canadian National U1Fs, are out on the market. And I want to thank Steve for sending me these to include in today's live stream. But I also have plenty of his other previous models, including an E10, aka Strasbourg number 89, 7470, which is at Conway Scenic, 7312, which is at Strasbourg, and Lucas Tail. And number 49, of which there's a couple surviving examples, one of which, number 47, is at Steamtown. So we have all these wonderful CN steam locomotives. And the question is, how do we build a layout that gives us a way of operating as many of them as possible in a setting that makes sense? We're going to get to building that. Before I do, I want to thank you guys who are tuning in live. I see NPK765 fan, White Star 1222, Matthew Harris. Great to see you guys coming back. Mr. Approach Medium. Hey, Joe. Good to see you in the stream as well. Oh man, this is one of my all-time favorite N-scale track plans. Well, I agree with you. I'm really excited about this one. I know I probably say that every month because I'm really excited about whatever track plan I'm building, but this is definitely a big one. So we're going to have fun with this tonight. And it's so big, you'll notice, okay, yes, I kind of cheated. Well, maybe you don't call it cheating. Maybe you call it getting a head start. And that's kind of what I was doing. So I started work on this last night because I just knew, especially with these city builds, there's a lot of buildings to account for. And I didn't want to waste your time in trying to find the right building. So I figured we're going to take, especially with the amount of track we have to lay, I didn't want to take too much time having to hunt for the right buildings. So we're going to start with kind of reviewing what I've done, and then we'll transition into the building. So let's talk about the plan as a whole. So Ozark Lines, as envisioned by Andy, is basically a division point. You've got all the staging tracks back here for all your ready to run trains. But it's a very British design. If you look at British model railway magazines, you notice this trend that rather than having multiple towns and running between those multiple towns, they tend to focus on a single scene. A lot of times they're big city stations or ends of the lines, and That's less common in the US. But I like how that logic is applied here because we have this one single city, which I was with a group of friends last night. And I'm like, what do I call this city? Because Ozark just does not sound Canadian because I want to make this a CN themed route. And somebody said, well, why don't you call it Orford? And I'm like, that's perfect. Okay, so this is Orford. So it's the city of Orford. So we've got a nice big Union Station. We've got yards for freight to be sorted. We've got an engine terminal. We've got express baggage loading. I know. Oh, you're not seeing my cursor. Well, better to forget that than one of the other things I usually forget when I'm about to live stream. So I just need to go into my settings on that and make sure we capture the cursor. And now you can see the cursor. Okay, so we've got this yard space. We've got an engine terminal. We've got a lot going on here. And this is N scale. So all of this is fitting in a 6-ish. He says 6 by 12, but it's really 8.5. This business about 2 by 3 foot extension is for the engine terminal here, which you could omit. You could do it without, but I do think that the engine terminal is part of the chart. But even an 8 by 12, that's not a huge footprint. So the questions we're going to be answering tonight, other than whatever questions you submit me in the chat, but the questions with this design that I see tackling are, how can we design an operational scheme that works for a single player experience? And how well does it work at being able to cater to all these different types of operations? Loading up that station yard with trains and doing everything from commuter to long distance passenger, local freights, branch freights, long haul freights that are coming to the yard. So we're going to have a play section, a good sized play section. But to do that, we're going to need to lay some more track. So if we turn off the track plan, you'll be able to see what I got started. So I laid down the staging because you're not missing anything terribly exciting with that. So just looking over your comments. You know where I can find it. I actually already have that Royal Hudson model installed, if it's the one that I'm thinking of there. Joey the Cat. John Overman, you gotta love UK model railroading. Yes. I totally agree with that sentiment. I think that I really particularly love Railway Modeler magazine. I think it's a tremendous publication. They feature so many layouts. They feature micro layouts. I love that as a publication. I have a bunch of track plans that I've pulled from there that I have already started building or intend to build, including Copper Wort, which is available on greattrainlayouts.com. And that one I have not live streamed yet, but plan to someday. And that is one which I wouldn't have discovered if it hadn't been for Railway Modeler magazine. And it's an unbelievably cool track plan. Okay, so one of the deviations I had to make, and this was more for just having the right type of building in the sim. So if we hide the route layer, we could see that the layout for the station is that we have one track that goes right by our station building. We've got these 2 express freight tracks. And then the platform design divides track 1, our main here, and track 2, which is our secondary line, which also goes to serve the freight house. We don't have that kind of... I couldn't find a terminal that like to do that, so instead we're going to end up kind of adding an extra track. A little bit of improvisation going on, because the main's going to end up going on this outside platform, and then there's going to be 2 on the inside here. So I'm going to have to... I'm saying this out loud partially for your knowledge and partially so I remember this, so that I don't get to that point and go, what the heck was I thinking there? And then realize I have one track too many or I've misaligned them. So just getting their freight station connected. And then I need to realign that curve a wee bit. And where this comes in, we're going to put our switch to here. Am I going to make that one solid piece, or am I going to split it as two? Let's see. Oop, one straightened. Yep, that has the right profile. I like how that looks. And then we'll put our third track in, coming on the outside of this platform. Which somehow that worked. Like so. Interesting. Because the other option would be I keep the same number of tracks, make this the main, and it goes straight through there. And then I have to rework that. Either way, I'm kind of stuck reworking the curve geometry, but we'll figure that out when we get to laying the yard ladders. I'm not a fan of how that angle comes in. So I could make it a curved turnout, even though I don't really want to do that, but let's see how that works out. Bring that. Oops. Bring that out. We'll get the mainline geometry in, and then we'll figure it out from there. Mr. Railyard, could you make it work as a Canadian Pacific theme layout? Yeah, honestly, this is something where there's a lot of flexibility of what theming you would give it. So I chose CN because Steve with K&L Trainz has made a ton of CN steam locomotives, and so I wanted to make this route to cater to all of those CN steam engines, but you could make it CP, you could make it a US route, probably even make it a UK route if you really wanted to get creative in that kind of way. The main advantage that I'm seeing with it as I go into it is the ability to, if you collect a bunch of locomotives, like, how do I put these together? I have steam, I have diesel, gives you a way of catering to different operations. Oh, this was something that I came up with that I was really proud of. So our backdrop has this bridge, which I guess is kind of designed to emulate a road bridge, and that's a nice slick transition into the backdrop. One of the things I like about the design is that it's not just about the passenger station and its associated traffic. We have a few industries here, so there's a little bit more to do than just back and forth. And or focusing on the mainline stuff, and I like that. I think that there's a lot of latitude that this design provides as far as being able to run different types of operations and at the same time. So because Trainz is a single player game, that's why my focus is on really analyzing the single player experience, but I very much of the opinion that it should hopefully cater to operating sessions where you'd have three, maybe two, maybe three separate crews, maybe three, maybe even four, depending on how you structure everything. So I think we're going to need to make that yard ladder a little tighter to get it into here. We're going to temporarily delete our passenger train to finesse that in, because I'd like to have the main line just curve and go out, but it's going to make that curve too tight. So I feel like we're better off just starting the yard ladder at a slightly steeper angle. And so you'll get to see me make a yard ladder in Trainz. Alaska Railroad Guy 659, do an Alaska Railroad layout. I would, but A, there's really not a lot of Alaska Railroad stock for Trainz and of any era, and B, I'm not really aware of a ton of Alaska Railroad model track plans, so that would be a matter of creating a new track plan, and I don't know if I'm so much I don't know enough about it other than my favorite well, one of my favorite films, Runaway Train, was filmed on the Alaska Railroad. And that could be an interesting train layout in its own right. I do think there's something to be said for modeling the Alaska Railroad, but I just don't have enough knowledge, nor am I familiar with um, any track plans out there. And we do occasionally do custom designs on this show. And of course, I do take commissions. So if you're interested in, so if you want me to build an Alaska Railroad train layout because you'd like to model the Alaska Railroad, well, I'd be more than happy to help you on that particular front. So let us see how that looks. I want to make sure all the switches came in right. Okay, there we go. Good enough. So we made this angle steeper. So this is if I was doing this for real, like I was planning this out, I would probably sacrifice using the actual buildings because I'd want to make sure the track works. I'm sure Andy designed the track so that it is accurate. Making modifications like in this in the sim, I don't know if I'm going to have the right size turnouts. I mean, they don't look unrealistically sharp, but I don't know for fact that they actually exist. So I'd probably make my changes in any rail or whatever method of layout design I'd use and then come back to it. But that looks pretty good on that side. So now we are going to lay out the yard ladders next and then connect everything up. I need to figure out where this guy's coming in. So this, oh, I know where I'm going to put that as a curved turnout. That makes sense. Okay. So these two tracks will kind of merge here and then come back into there. Yep. That works for me. And you could make the case, well, Nick, isn't this kind of a big station for, you have this big station, but you only have single main going in and out. I was thinking about that. Do I think it's terribly unrealistic? No, I think that one could probably find examples of railroads where you had a fairly large station that only had a single main going in and out. But it's all up to you. You are the modeler. You do as you wish to do. One of the things that I think I learned about this about Andy from reading about the Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy model railroader big giant layout is that Andy really loved to design yards. So it's only fitting that he made this plan, which is chock full of yard. And what we have over here, and I didn't talk about it that much, so I'm going to talk about it now, is we have a drill lead. So you have some switching activity going on in the yard. And let's say you have it going on. Let's say you've got some freights that came in and you want to get those freights into the stub end portion of the yard. And we'll talk about the stub end portion of the yard in a bit, because I do have thoughts on that. But you don't want to clog up the main. Well, you don't have to, because you have this track that is super long, that is dedicated to just being able to switch cars from any of these yard tracks, and you don't have to clog up the main. That is a really smart design. There's an issue model railroader that specifically talks about the Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy. And it's in my pile over to there. Otherwise, I'd show it, but I have a cat on my lap, and I'm talking to you guys. And Andy talks about his philosophy with yard design, and it was... it was really interesting to learn more about it, because it's not something that I've tended to spend a lot of time thinking about, how you put a yard together to make it functional. But the more that you're focused on ops, the more that having a functional yard really can make or break your layout, depending on what kind of operation you're doing. Going to your comments, have you thought about doing Tom Dickinson's HO scale Burlington Northern layout? Not familiar with it. Gilbert Porter, those smooth side CN coaches you showed a few seconds ago, Rapido announced some in N scale but had to cancel due to low pre-orders. Yeah, bummer about that. We'll bring out Edmonston in their honor. We do have that car in the sim. Ron Paladin. Hey, Ron. Rick Bugle did an Alaska track plan in the NMRA bulletin in the 70s. I mean, I'd be curious to see it. But I don't have NMRA bulletins that far back. Oh, Halo, Railfin, Xander, and Mr. Railyard would be cool to run RDC on the light. Very cool. Sadly, we don't have... there aren't any really good RDCs for this sim. So, but what we do have that we're going to be playing with is we do have CN tank engines. So we're going to be doing commuter. We're going to have some fun with that. All right. Let us get some yard action going on here. Which this is going to parallel that. And then we might need to shift the... I need to shift the ladder over a bit just to make sure it's going to fit. About here, maybe? That seems about right. And then I can have the switch come in here, and yeah, okay, I think that should work. I'm going to kind of try to get everything back on track as far as matching the track plan. But you can see why I did take some time yesterday to get a head start on this, because this is it's a track, it's a complicated track layout, and it's city buildings. And my goal, first and foremost, to entertain you guys. And though some of you might find the inner minutia of shopping for the right building fascinating, I do not wish to bore the rest of you. So that is why I worked ahead. Well, that, and I mean, I can't deny, I was also just kind of generally excited about putting this one together. There's certain track plans that as soon as I put them in the sim, the temptation is so strong to just begin going to town and working on it. I really felt that way with the Lolita and Mad River. That was one that as soon as I got in the sim, it's like, okay, how is this all going to fit? Is it going to fit? Because that was a particularly fun build. If you haven't seen that, that was around this time last year. It might have been exactly a year ago. We started building that Ian Rice track plan, which was a very fun build. Might need to clean some of this after we get the main tracks in, but I'm just going to use this as a template for getting the tracks in, and then we'll clean them up once we can turn off the guide. Let's talk about this stub yard. I have opinions on stub yards. I don't know if you do, but I do. Stub yards, especially when it comes to freight switching. Initially, I just categorically wasn't a fan of them because I felt like the problem is you can't run around your cars. You can't pull trains into them. You always have to push trains into them. And from that standpoint, it was a turnoff. But I'll tell you what track plan really changed my notions of what a stub end yard could do, and that was the model railroader Virginian layout build from the early part of 2012. I have built that in Trainz. It's done. It just needs to be released. Maybe I'll make that next month's release for patrons on Patreon. Right now, if you go to Patreon and support the work that I do for the links in the description, you support for as little as $1 a month, you get early access to these train layouts. And the one that I've currently put up there is not the East Broad Top. The East Broad Top is available on greattrainlayouts.com. Golly, what did I just stick on Patreon? I'm going to pull that up for a second, because I forget which layout I put up there for folks to try out. Oh, I know. The Arcade in Attica. So that was another layout that I built off stream that I have not shown on the show yet. But It is a model railroad of the modern day arcade in Attica. And if you think that would be fun and cool and would like to get early access to it, you can go to patreon.com/theroundhouse. And for those of you who are already supporting the show, I appreciate that very much. Anyway, before I got off on the Patreon, what was I? Oh, 7 yards. Okay, so Virginian layout. I built it in Trainz, and the center of that railroad is this. It is a stub yard designed for switching trains of coal that come in from different mines. I remember seeing it and thinking, this makes like this is kind of spaghetti bowl. Does it really work operationally? Well, I built it in the sim, and I can tell you, it works. It makes sense, and I love that layout a lot. We're probably gonna. I think that in one of the coming months, we're gonna do a. We're gonna do a live stream, which is just playing with some of these layouts that I built off stream, and the Virginian is on that list to play with because, oh, that's a fun one. That has a lot of operating potential to it. Okay, let us turn off the map and see which tracks. Oh, I forgot to throw in the switches there. Let's do that. Yep. Point is that a stub yard can make sense. I mean, yes, you do have the limitations of needing to back your trains into it, but it depends on how you're structuring your operations. And what I'm envisioning for how we do that here is that we use it as a means of trains come off the main line, they get thrown into one of the tracks, and then a couple of the other tracks are used to sort out cars. I think there's a way that we could work with that limitation. And obviously, with the way it's built, there's no particular way to there's no really good way to be able to turn it into a double-ended yard. I mean, yes, in the sim, it'd be easy enough to just extend it, and we could do that. But you know me, I'm a purist. I like to stick, usually, I like to stick with the intention of the track plan. This is some interesting switch work here. And this isn't the part that should be complicated. But it is proving to be a little funky for some reason, which I cannot discern. Because that should just be... I'm going to push this back a little bit more. Then I should be able to get that in here. Ron Paladin. For my latest project, I'm building a Trainz version of Built and Scale Milwaukee Kingsbury branch. Really like the urban switching. Ah, yeah. Kingsbury branch is that is a very cool layout. I have not seen it in person, but I've seen videos of it. And urban switching is a vibe. Something tells me I have one too many. Yep. Okay. I might have to adjust these. Hiding widths too. Kind of an interesting element of the thing. But it is so nice to have you guys along for the ride tonight, as always. I'm glad that you enjoy the adventures that we get up to, the designs that we make. Because this kind of stuff, this is fun. I like being able to explore these different topics and explore these different concepts. It's very... I think I've told this to you guys before. Stop me if you've heard this one before. As much as you can stop me through the comments, but... yeah, man, those are some tight turnouts. We have to play around with that a bit more. So, when I first started getting into Trainz layouts, I genuinely believed that I was doing it for the purpose of that I was going to play with the layout. That it wasn't about building a ton of layouts. It was I wanted to play with the layout. And the building was just the means of getting to the play. That is what I thought. So that the first layout I built was the Susquehanna in New York, which we actually covered on what makes this layout great. And I built that, and then I saw the like Gary Franklin and Clarion layout track plan. I thought, well, that looks cool. I should try building that. And I don't know how long it took, but then there was the Norfolk and Western in the 1950s, which we played. We streamed back in January, the play session of that. Finally, I don't know how long it took, but it finally dawned on me. I'm not here. I mean, I am here to play with these, and I do revisit some of them, but keeping it real, I'm here because I like building these layouts. The play is partially in the fun of building them. You know, having the idea come together, being able to piece together the buildings and so forth. That is the fun for me. And that's okay. Everybody has their own reasons for playing, like, or their own definitions of play. So that was once I realized and accepted that. It's like, okay, let me do more around just this idea of playing with the builds. Okay, that might not be quite the total ticket, but I think that'll do. Let us turn off the guides and see how we did. Some of this I might finesse off stream too, but I really want to get to the part of the show where we want to make sure we have enough time for play. Maybe doing some little extra detailing because we often don't have enough time to get to that. So I'm just going to clear the switch stands out of the way. Eventually I'll swap them out for proper switch stands. But right now, just making sure that they're kind of out of the way of the other tracks so we don't have our trains running through them. So that is our track complete. And as you can see, I think we got pretty close to the original concept. So let's have some fun with some texturing, some roads, maybe some detailing, especially around the station. The station, I mean, this building, some of these builds, there is a building, and everything is built around that building, you could say. And this fine station by Dave Snow, this is such a centerpiece model. We've talked about that on here before. The idea that in certain cases, like you have that one standout structure, you have that one standout scene, like this is what it all hinges around. And for me, you can make the case of it being the roundhouse, but I feel like that's off to the side visually. So to me, this is kind of what it's all about right here. Definitely going to want to off stream see if I could create urban backdrops are tough, but I want to see if I could come up with something to give us a nice skyline. So I'll show you a little bit of what we have going on here while we do some roadwork and texture. We've got the station itself. We've got this express freight building, and we have. And this, I was really happy with this. So there's a building set in the design, but no purpose given to it. So I'm like, what should go right next to the station? And it dawned on me, a hotel. So this is the railroad's premier hotel, because this is a major city. This is a division point. There would be a railroad hotel. So that's the railroad hotel. And then we kind of slowly transitioned into the more industrial section of things. The other thing I was thinking of doing, and you could tell me if you want me to do it on stream, for those of you who are watching live or not, I was thinking that to make this a little bit more dramatic, because I don't love that these tracks are level. I mean, it's fine, but I'm not crazy about it. I have this vision of that once the train goes over the crossover here, or the once we've passed this crossover, we start a 2% climb that looks something like this. And actually, if we really want to make it dramatic so that we can kind of have, well, okay. So although I'm saying that, and then I realize there's supposed to be a railroad crossing here. And we could make it an underpass if we move these buildings further. Oh, I like that. I'm talking myself into a thing. See, this is the beauty of pre-visualization. I'm going to do it just because I talked myself into it. Yes, Mr. Railyard, the Royal York is kind of the inspiration for the hotel. Because if we have this 2% grade up, because I don't want to make it crazy steep. Otherwise, it's just going to seem unrealistic. But I like that enough. And then if we make this, we're going to have to turn off the guide. And we're also going to have to turn on the skeleton view just to be able to try this concept out. Because if I don't like it, I'm going to go back from doing it. But this is what you came here for. You came here for the pre-visualization. Who am I to disappoint you? Well, okay. So as I'm saying this, I'm like, okay. In theory, I like how these two tracks, you have one up on high up on this embankment and then this Yardley that goes down. I do think that's cool. So this is definitely not what Andy was thinking, because he doesn't have any height markers on the plan. So I think his vision is it's all flat, which we could do. I am so torn on this. Because I like it visually, but then it doesn't make sense because it's like, okay, so you would need the road to go down, tunnel under this, and then cross over that track. No, that doesn't make sense. Or you could have a bridge here, so the road goes down, and then the road goes underneath, and then it has a grade crossing. I mean, I do like the idea of having those kind of two different elevations of things. What do you guys think when you're watching? Those of you who are watching live, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole a little bit, because I'm just really curious about this as a concept. You tell me what you think, but I just look at it and I'm like, I think we could make this work. Girder. Gonna kind of do a rough approximation of what I have in mind, or is it Warren? Maybe we'll do this version of it. But definitely it's going to need to be a girder that goes above so that the cars could clear the girder bridge. I think. Therefore I am. Interesting set of options. Okay, we're going to use this as just kind of a... I don't want to actually use this model, but just for the sake of... Oops, wrong one. Getting it roughed in there. No, because we don't have enough height clearance for it to clear the cars. Because your cars need to go down. And they need to go down next to this building. It's a shame. I do like that as a concept, though. Ron Paladin, make it work. I'm trying to make it work. I do feel like there's something to be done here. I mean, I could just omit the crossing entirely. That feels like cheating. I could do it. Or it could cross over and then immediately bridge over. Challenge is I just don't think we can change how the track comes in. Because the track, like, it's a wide curve, so technically you could make it go straight and then narrow curve, but I just don't think that would look right. And we need that drill track. Like, that's important to the operation of the whole thing. The other thing I will admit, though, that I don't like about it being a grade crossing is that if it's a grade crossing, your drill track is taking up a grade crossing. I think your city's going to be a little annoyed with you that you're constantly... Because that's the thing. This feels like... a crossing that would have been built in the tens and teens. And then the traffic got insane, and so they worked with the city, and the city built an overpass. That's what I think. Sink the road. Well, okay, yes, we could do that. Like, we could have both tracks go up a grade and then sink the road. So we could either sink the road... Which do I prefer? The thought that just occurred to me is... If we sink the track... Oh, and then I'm going to have to... Well... Not a big deal if we sink the track a bit and then it has to climb through staging. I think we can work that out. But if we sink the track a bit, and then we have an overpass going on top, I think that works scenically, especially if it's like you widen this a bit, so there's like an overpass going down the center, and then there's a city like... I got it. No, your internet didn't just freeze. I think I see a thing. I like the thing I see. We're gonna try it. We're gonna try it. We're gonna do it live. I'm gonna try it without syncing the track because even though that might be a necessity, I don't want to have to figure that out in staging, and this idea already might take me down a bit of a rabbit hole. So we're gonna just level everything back out. So what is this big idea that made me pause for way too long? I'll tell you what my big idea was. The big idea, because I just think it would be cool, is we've got the track here. There's a sort of road... I forget, like, this is all paved in. It's all so all of this is paved. There's a highway bridge that cuts down the center of it and just goes over top. So we don't have a grade crossing. However, we allude to the idea that there's a way to get onto this highway that isn't modeled, that's off-scene. And then underneath, we build a trolley line. Is that not cool? Like, okay, so here's what I'm suggesting. Because what we can do, and I don't want, I want light pound. SG 90 even feels heavy. Let's do SG 60. Real lightweight, milled, no ballast. Sure. I mean, we'll kind of need to get rid of the ties, but this could work. Okay, so you've got a trolley line that disappears off to nowhere, goes into your backdrop, comes down the center. I mean, you could maybe even fit a loop if you've got some really tight cars, but then you could have it could be interurban. So you've got a loading track here in the street. Like, we need, well, we don't need a platform because those doors are elevated. So you've got this track of the street, but it's paved over, so you've got the trucks that come in, and then it comes into a switch, which is off. We don't see where that switch is. And then you've got this line coming. Well, but then you gotta make the darn thing work. Okay. I feel like this is me at my most insane, guys. I apologize if I'm freaking you out. I'm really trying not to, but here's what I'm thinking. This is trolley. Like, this is true trolley. As opposed to fake trolley. This is true trolley. You've got your trolley line here. Remember that the trolley line is underneath the highway. And then... yeah, that's not a ridiculous curve for a trolley. Trolley can make that. And then it goes off with the rest of the railroad. I love it. I hope you guys love it too. But I love it. And I'm doing it. Oh, that was a nice surprise. I feel like there was an assignment with this, and I made the assignment way more complicated. But is that not cool? That's the spice. Okay, so we've kind of done a very funky thing with the thing, but let me see what. Okay, I've seen. Yes, nice. Okay, that's good to see. Turntable, that works. I'm not sure what. Oh, like a turntable built into the street. Well, I like that idea too, and that'd be one way to do it, kind of a la the San Francisco cable cars. But I like this because then you could actually complete the loop on the other side and run a trolley all the way through in a nice loop-de-loop-de. And I do like me a nice trolley line. Although, admittedly, we've kind of come in at this awkward angle. But you could revert, like, do a dog bone on the other end. Sure, why not? Something like that. That's probably a little too tight. This is another one of those, I'll probably play with it off screen. So I'm taking this layout, which was initially like, oh, I'm going to do this as a single stream build, and then I'll be done. And I just made it more complicated for myself. So I hope you guys are liking this layout. Maybe I'll finish it off stream. We'll have to see where it gets to. But, yeah, that's tight, but it's probably not unrealistically tight for trolley. And then we'll delete this. We'll put our switch in there, because now we're actually having a real switch, because we're actually running the darn thing. Recognizing you'd basically put really small cars in there, but now you could be like, but Nick, wouldn't the railroads just interchange? And they could. But I just want the trolley line. Like, you could pretend that the other side doesn't exist or isn't used anymore, and just say it's a trolley line, and kind of like Montreal and what's the name of it? There was a interurban that went out of Montreal and Southern counties. There we are. Thanks, Gilbert. I'm glad you find it cool. As I knock down my microphone. I need to get a new stand. This one is a little loose. Okay. And do let me know if you, at any point you have volume problems. Somebody commented after one of the recent streams that said, oh, your volume's too low. And it's like, oops, sorry. Just to prove that this does work. And see, I just want to do a quick... want to do a quick test and just make sure that I can put a car on here and it looks okay. I mean, that's tight, but it can navigate that. I mean, doesn't that look so cool? Like, you could have your trains going in the foreground, then you got this trolley in the background. I'm so happy with that discovery. See, this is why we built, this is why we do what we do on this show. Because, you know, you can look at a two-dimensional plan, and that's all fine and dandy. You can visualize in your mind, but when you're building it in the sim, it all opens up all these other creative avenues of things. Okay. So now we need to figure out... Now I gotta figure out how to put a highway on top of that. Maybe we'll skip the highway for now. I feel like that could get very spline heavy. And also, we probably want to do the details down here before we worry about that. So, okay. Let us do a little bit of... Okay, the track needs to look like it's going straight down the street. So we'll move it more akin here, there. But, oh, man. What a lovely discovery that was. And so... Now to bury this, because I feel like what we're going to be doing is we're going to be really sprucing up this side of things, and yeah, I can see that. I mean, there is the risk that by putting a highway bridge through there, we kind of do dwarf the, as Mr. Rudy pointed out, the um, D&H freight and passenger station. Which building is that? I forget which city that's in. Uh, we do kind of dwarf it if we do that. We'll just keep it a street. Okay, so I got rid of the crossing. Well, I could put the crossing in and just hope the drivers are patient. Because I mean, I could put the highway in, but then I'm also thinking like you end up blocking these buildings. We'll just make it a regular street. Although I could put an elevated railway through there. Okay, one crazy idea for a night is good enough. We'll leave it as is. So, do I want to do this? I think I want to do this with cobblestone streets. That just feels right to me. And what cobblestone streets do I need? I think there's Sam? I'm not... Sam Road. Somewhere I have these really great cobblestone streets that are just super nice. That's a nice sidewalk. Use that for something. And that's dirt roads. Maybe we'll do it as a, we'll do the road as a texture. So we're gonna lock the tracks into height of 0 so that when we play with the ground, they don't get raised up. They aren't raised up. And we'll go with a big radius, but very low. We'll do kind of like that. And then we'll go in there, clean it up a wee bit, just to make sure our rails stick out. And yeah, there's just something nice about that, because you figure this is an edge of the layout, which could admittedly go next to the wall. Oh, being in New York. Thank you, Rudy. But, oh, thanks for tuning in, PK fan. But so, assuming you didn't put this against a wall, this is a nice scene. And especially with a layout like this where everything is in a single city, the more that we can split up the layout into individual scenes, the better. I'm realizing I could have also lowered the track rather than raised up the ground, but both work. Okay, now we need a nice cobblestone texture. PBR stone, maybe? We'll go this. Oh, I know what it is. There is actually one. Cobble. Brick, maybe? Brick pavement too. Yeah, that works. Let's turn it at an angle so that it looks... Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that is exactamundo what I had envisioned. I like that so much. We'll need to give it some definition. We'll need to put some sidewalks in there, but does that look cool or what, guys? I'm pretty proud of that, if I do say so myself. But I'm always open to your feedback and your ideas. That's why I do this. One of the many reasons why I do this live is because I love being able to interact with you guys and hear your thoughts. Let me see if I can get that angle cleaned up a little more. If I turn it this way, does it look... That looks better. Looks a little less awkward of an angle. Looks more like it's going down the street. Yeah, I dig it. And then... just to give us a little bit of edge definition with the thing. That's what I was looking for, these AMT streets. Which I also like, but we're going to stick with what we did. Yes, and that is very much the sidewalk I wanted to have. I think I'm going to have to adjust the... Something is a bit... No, that's right. I thought I was off angle-wise, but it's just the texture. Ah, man, oh man, that makes me happy. That looks right proper. We'll put that here. We'll put another one of those over the other sidewalk just so it's all nice and uniform. Looks spickety-doo-dah. I don't know what spickety-doo-dah means, but that does sound like a phrase that should exist. Yep. And then we'll play that as if it was a... Oh! bonus round of a sort. So we're gonna fill in this street pavement here. Again, probably trying to put some type of backdrop there in the long run, but from a trolley standpoint, I hope Joe is still watching and can appreciate how this is sort of perhaps an homage to his Dayton and Troy layout, which is a wonderful piece of art in its own right. We're going to put in a Y. Not a functional one, but a why not? Okay. You guys are awesome. If I haven't told you that lately, you're awesome. I do have so much fun being here with you. So our why not gets to also be embedded in the street. Oh golly, that looks so legit. That makes me a happy man. Oh, Joe is still here. Okay, so I hope, Joe, that you appreciate this homage to your masterpiece, the Dayton and Troy. I do love that layout a lot. I may have upgraded it for TRS 19, and I may have to reach out to you about releasing that upgrade, if you're cool with it, because that layout's very nice. I need an invisible switch stand, because if I just take out these switch stands, I'm going to invariably forget that I did. Ram switch stands, maybe? Ram stop. I forget what else. I definitely have an we'll leave the... Do I really want to leave the levers in? Maybe we'll try leaving the levers in. We'll delete them, but make sure they're set the right way so that the trolley won't have issues. We'll hope that works. Oh, man, that makes me happy. The catenary will be fun and interesting. I'm going to worry about that later. I really painted myself into a corner where it's like, oh, we're going to do this whole thing. And now I'm just getting fixated on this one little scene. But it's fun. It's too much fun. Now, what to do with this corner? Probably just some fencing and making it look like... make it look like that's kind of the back lots of those properties. Well, actually, this should probably be parking in here. This corner should be parking. This should be fenced off. Okay. Now to find the right fence. I never know when chain link fences were invented, and have no idea thus if I'm being realistic or not to put it up. But I think chain link fences were around then. I'm gonna assume they were. I like this one better. Oof. Did not mean to do that. But we're gonna put this one. So our chain link fence goes here. That could be like bunker stuff back there. Then this continues to become part of the... Well, let's place the sidewalk to see how I want that to divide itself. I probably should also eventually get away from this so I can do some texturing of the yards, because I'm going to focus on this scene and then spend no time over here Because most of the operations are over there, of course. As you do. We'll just say the sidewalk stops. Um, we'll keep it. We'll keep it like this. I like that. And then we have. Oh, now that becomes an entrance. So, how do we want to separate the track? Do we just separate it with the chain link fence, or do we separate it using some other means? Questions and questions. Brick wall, maybe? Like brick wall, and then we do have a crossing here of some kind. I do think we should have a crossing. I mean, there's no way we should wall that off because the whole point is to be able to look down the street. Questions. Side note, I hope you guys are appreciating the musical selection today. I put a new playlist together just for this era. Felt like it was a nice change of pace, something jazzy, bossa nova in places. Oh, I love bossa nova. You guys love bossa nova? Yeah, this feels like way too much brick. But if the road curves, we can make this dirt. Let's get some dirt down here, and maybe some cinders too. Let's see. Because I actually used a lot of cinder. Oh, yeah. Okay, that looks good for there. Although I need to scale down the size. I do like that. Might have to replace some of those tracks or do some creative. But yeah, okay. So if this is cinders, and we'll have to figure out more about how to divide that scene. But I do like it a lot. I suppose, well, so you have the building divide into two, and then what? Nah, there should be some kind of fence there. I guess we could do a chain link fence there too. Can always swap it out with something else later if I don't like it. But we put a chain link fence, and it kind of looks like this. Nah, it looks too modern. It needs to be brick. It needs to be brick wall. Ideally, a tan brick that's going to match that. I don't know if we're going to get that lucky. Not that far off. I mean, off stream, I could probably create a brick that matches it. I like that texture, though. Oh, that's gonna be a whole model railroad backdrop. Fence, brick wall. Closer, but also not. There we go. Okay. Not perfect, but it will work. It's close enough, and that definitely looks right. And then we curve it like so. And then, oh, ooh, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. I hope you guys love it too. Because I think that looks, because now we've really done a good job of containing the scene. Because your line of sight, you've got this building as a backdrop here. You've got the fence that curves around until you get to the yard. Our D&H freight passenger, well, in this case, just freight station. Our city street scene, our diner. Oh man, that is, because I feel like you're looking in. Part of what I like about it, I don't know what the word is to describe these, but it's sort of like you have a box, and you only have a little peephole into that box, but there's a whole scene in the box. So there's this sense of kind of looking into a world. So what I like about this is that we kind of have this this narrowed field of view that then opens up into all this other stuff going on. Of course, yes, especially because it's N scale, we can stand over it and look up top, and it still holds its own when doing it, looking at it that way. But I love the street view on this. That makes me a very, very happy camper. Okay, so we're gonna leave this for the time being. I need a good PBR dirt. Because I feel like PBR dirt's going to be our kind of basis, and then we'll touch it up here and there with spots of grass. It's largely going to be dirt. That feels too Mother Nature-y soil. Too smooth. Too soil. Yeah, probably more like that. I don't know if I love it, but we'll go with that for there. I want something else for the other areas. Oil for... No, definitely not that. You know, it just dawned on me. Finally, I have a layout where I'm not having to worry about if I'm placing too many trees. Because usually that's my concern is, am I going a little bit too crazy on the trees? Should I have less trees? And here, like, no, I haven't placed a single tree in the hour and 12 minutes I've been streaming. So, no trees to worry about. I love that. Okay, yeah, I like that gray. That's kind of something different. A little bit more drab, which might not be your cup of tea, and hence, you would build your layout as you would build it. I like it from a change of pace standpoint, though. And we could always place some weeds and stuff to give a little bit more color. I'm also hoping that by putting in a backdrop, we might get more color that way. Shadow box. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Yeah, shadow box. Okay, let's do... There is a texture that matches that, which we'll place, but for the initial base, I'm going to do a coating of cinders, ashes, and then we'll add layers of dirt. Because this is a scene which, I mean, we could most certainly add more clutter and ground detail and so forth, but for just, I want to make sure I've got something to play with tonight. It's good. I do like that. Because even that, the way the tracks lead into the turntable, so this turntable is central. Good question. How did I cut the hole in the backdrop? I will let you in on my secret, Joe, and that secret is, I didn't cut a hole. It is custom backdrops that I made. So if you search on the download station for my username, which is ETOZORAK, or just search for MMR, or not MMR, MRR backdrop, sky single, there's single-sided and double-sideds, and if I haven't uploaded them, then I will certainly do so for this route. So what I did is I made a custom backdrop, which you have, it just goes from the ground level to the top. And then I also made it what I call the short, which is the same top height, but has approximately 10-meter real world scale. Well, 10 meters, like if, I don't know how to describe it. If we were treating this as real world size as opposed to N scale, that's 10 meters high. Ergo high enough to be able to fit, not necessarily intermodal stacks through, but just about everything else can fit through that. And so you put them together and then it creates this smooth line on top. So those were custom assets I made. Thank you, Joe. I'm glad you think I'm a genius for that. I've talked with you guys about how I don't consider myself a 3D modeler comparatively to what people could do with buildings and certainly rolling stock, and especially our sponsor, Steve Laro, who made these gorgeous steam locomotives. That is well beyond my skill set, but I know enough to be able to make basic shapes. So I've had a couple ideas come to me here and there of like, I want to do this thing, but it doesn't exist yet. So I guess I'll just build it myself if it's relatively simple. So that's how I came up with the cutaway design, because now I'm using it all over the place, and it adds that little bit more, because I used to just put a backdrop and put a black bar through it to emulate you're going through a tunnel, but I just like the ability to actually have it, and then it's sort of neat on the other side when it's black, so it's you know kind of separating your staging visually. Alrighty. So now we want to kind of mix bits of the dirt in, so it's not just this boring black, nothing of soil in places, especially around here, especially, that's kind of interesting. Oh, that makes it look better. Okay, yeah. So if we place it around the turntable, that's going to help to blend the turntable in and make it look less like, oh my gosh, there's a circle there. I mean, there is a circle there, but we don't want to be too obvious about it. Yeah, I can dig it. And then maybe some along there, and along there. Yeah, that'll do for now. We could super detail it at another point. How am I doing, Matthew Harris? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Well. Or I should say, well, I am doing well now. I have had a I like being honest with you guys. I have had a couple of weeks of it that have been tough. My cat Alco, who did join us on the live stream on occasion, the black cat, he sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago. And that was one of the unfortunate cases where we had to put him down because he was getting ill and it was just clear things weren't going to get better. So that was rough. And then a week ago, a deer hit my car. I'm still dealing with the insurance business on that. So, like, times have been better for me. But I think it's sometimes we need to be honest about how we're doing. So I will say that I've been better. But I will also say that I try to remain optimistic. And that is why yes, play is play, and sometimes we can dismiss it as like, like, what's the necessity of it? Do we need it? But I think sometimes we really do need it, because life could just get really depressing and really raining on your parade, and we need fun. Fun is important. I'm glad to have fun with you guys. So I say this to say it's okay to say you're not okay. In this moment, I am good. I'm having I'm okay. The deer hitting me, no injuries or issues. So I'm all right in that sense. But sometimes we have to admit that we could be better, and that's okay. All right, brainstorming time. What do we do with this random gap here? Because I feel like we need a little bit of grass. We're getting very brown, and that's okay, but I want a little bit of optimism. I want a little bit of grass as optimism. Oh, this gets real, folks. This gets real fast. Alrighty. Some kind of grass and dirt combo would be nice for that, though. I don't want it to be like, woo, boom, here comes the sun grass. Just sort of, okay, there's a bit of grass in here. That feels maybe a bit light, but I need some sunshine in my life. Sure, we'll go with that. Like how texturing became metaphoric for how I'm doing in my life. It is what it is. Alrighty. So, but I like that. I think that it brightens it just a little bit. Just a little bit. And we could put some bushes there just so that it's not all gray. Yeah, I like that. Then here. Oh, Millennial Modeler. Well, I appreciate your condolences, and I have sympathies about the deer. Yeah, it's interesting. the same night I hit one, a friend on Facebook also hit one. And then I called because I was going to get my oil changed the next day. So I called the mechanic and let them know, hey, I'm kind of not going to get my oil changed because I kind of don't have a car at the moment. And the mechanic said, oh, my wife hit one this morning. So they are, I don't know what it is this year, but they are out in force. They are really out in force. Okay, that is definitely way too monotone. But we're kind of just putting on a base coat, and then we're gonna add some flavor to it. Um, uh, do I think the CNUNF trade pack is worth the price? I do, but we're gonna play with it later. You stick around, and we're gonna have our play session, and we're definitely gonna have some fun with these two guys right here. I can't wait. I have not, other than placing them down and just doing a quick little draft, I have not played with them that much, so we're gonna get to enjoy that together. Let's just do this all flat one color, and then we can kind of go in and finesse it more, because I think that'll tell us they'd. I'm tempted to do a little bit of fun detailing around the station. I don't want to get too off track of our mission, our destiny. But that might be a fun one to super detail a little bit. Because the two things we're exploring here, every time we're building a layout, we're building it to see if it works as a track plan, as an operation scheme, and we're building it to see what we can unlock. What secrets can we unlock tonight? What does this track plan tell us? And I'll tell you what, so now that we're in the yard, the appeal to me, even though I'm not an N scaler, is that at 6x12, it would not be hard to expand the footprint of this for HO. You're talking at that point essentially 24 feet wide by, this section would be about, oh, math. What would we say, 6 feet? So yeah, 12 feet wide here, but which is okay if you could get into this central section. That's not a problem. And which honestly you would need to do for N scale anyways, because otherwise how are you rerailing things here? So this is an open area, and what I like about it is as I'm sure I've mentioned on the show before, have a huge soft spot in my heart for everything Canadian Pacific. I mean, really anything Canadian, but especially CP and CN, and especially CP. As a result, I have grown very fond of a certain model railroad manufacturer called Repeater Trainz. I may have a model Royal Hudson on the layout, which is Greenfield Village, but it's my display locomotive. And I may also have a D10 or two on the way, which I just saw from their newsletter, or they are expecting soon. So when I'm thinking about what my big layout would look like someday, which I don't have room to build now, I play with so many ideas. I mean, why do you think one of the many reasons why I do this. So I'm going to need chain link fence for that. So as a result, I'm thinking of what my roster is going to look like. And that makes me realize how eclectic it's going to be. Like, yes, it'll be a lot of CP steam, and so in that sense, it's kind of uniform. But it's a bit mixed in the sense that it's going to be some mainline power, some branch line power, And how can I make this all make sense in the same layout? And I think that this design in particular could be a key answer. Because I feel like the ability to do it that way. Yeah, sure. The ability to have all of these different types of trains that originate and terminate and pass through here with a large staging is one solution to my problem. So we're kind of modeling that through CN power, but you could easily do it through CP, as we mentioned earlier. And so I look at this and I think I could see doing something like this. No, it doesn't have the travel sense, but it does give everything a hub and a home. And I like that. So, yeah, that fence gives it a nice separation. It's a lot of gray still. So I kind of want to do, or a lot of brown. So I kind of want to just go to town on these textures to really not make it look too dull and boring. Because that is perhaps one of the cons of this design, depending on how you define your pros and cons. But somebody might look at this and say, man, that's a lot of track and brown to just boom have in the foreground. And I think that it really just depends on what your tastes are. If you like railroading in the countryside, this is not going to be the track plan for you. And admittedly, that's something that I keep in mind with myself. Is I do think I prefer something a bit more country running. But this is why I'm trying this design, is because I feel like, well, I can experiment with it and see what I like about it and see what I don't, and that gives me ideas. I think that the reality is I wouldn't necessarily build something this just city. Although, you know, I want a park. Because there's a hotel here, and then I feel like we're kind of very quickly going into industrial park. I want a green park. So I'm thinking, and let's see, I've got 30 minutes before we start our play session. Everything's textured, so we at least have stuff down. I'm thinking a park. Try a different ballast texture for the yard versus the main. We'll break up the gray a little. Good idea. I will take up Joe's suggestion on that. Also kind of helps to accent what track is the main. I like that idea. Let's see if we've got something bright, kind of like a highlight color. Like a lighter gray. Just subtle enough. So I like that idea, but then so I'm going to try to find that and do that. And then we will go about the process of, man, these are all kind of dark. It's ironic. Usually I'm usually looking for darker textures, and tonight I find myself wanting to seek something brighter. Okay, we'll make that work. I can live with that. So this is our main. It does kind of mess with the surrounding tracks, which I'm not crazy about, but I can refine that. Man, I need some water. I can refine that a little bit later. I did see what he's getting at. I see what the guy who's also spent a lot of time in Trainz route editing is talking about. I don't like the spillage of that. I think what else that might have that would be a little bit of a brighter PBR stone, maybe? Oh, no wonder. I'm searching PBR dirt. Would be searching PBR ballast. That would make sense. So if we search ballast, I mean, that works a lot better with the surrounding areas. It Yes, I think that is going to do just fine and dandy. Because now, yeah, that is an improvement. Because now we have this more polished looking main line that clearly stands out from the well, clear enough, but um, it isn't like a yellow highlighter. It isn't, oh my gosh, look at this main line. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you say my collection's complete? Just a subtle kind of thing. Yeah, yep. Thanks, Joe. You the man. That did the trick. And we'll ballast this too, because even though this isn't the main, this is also going right into the station, which should look nice and pretty, so we'll do that as a thing. There we go. Yeah, yeah, indeed. And then maybe also some more stony-esque things around here, and then it doesn't look. Yeah, that gives it a little bit more life and vitality than just look at all this brown. Look at all this brown. Isn't this a nice brown? Something along those lines is what I have in mind. That, yeah, that looks. Going with gray as opposed to brown gives it a little bit more pep. A little bit more pep in the step. I also feel like I could do something with the backs here. Maybe that could be. I know what that could be. So I'm going to go with like a PBR grass and dirt on that as well. Man, I do not have a lot of PBR grass and dirt. So I'm going to do a quick shopping trip and see if I can pick something up. Go to the store, get some eggs, some cheese. I do love cheese. Dirt. The download station. Okay, there we go. That seems right to me. Grass. Yep, and there it is. I mean, too uniform. But if we split that up with some other forms of grass and dirt. There. A little bit more color. A little bit more alluding to that there's vitality beyond this. Okay. Station time. I want this to look... Because right now this looks like... This luxury hotel... tain't got much luxury around it. And I really want to do... Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to do kind of... on the hill. Yeah. Because if it's looking over... Especially because this whole track plan is flat. And you know how much I like to say that if your track plan is flat, you sculpt the land around it so that it has a little bit more visual interest. And that is what we're going to do here. Because I think that will give it a little bit more, hey, look at this nice thing that's hovering in midair on the other side. But that's okay, because we're not looking on that side. We're looking on this side. Yeah, because we're sort of going with Toronto, sort of, kind of, you know, a la this being Canadian National. Sort of, kind of Toronto. Ooh, I do like that. You want to make it more grassy, though. Yeah. That way it just looks a little bit more... Yeah, just a little bit more like, okay, there's some optimism here. Pep. Little bit of visual diversity. Yeah. I think there probably would be a fence surrounding that, but can I get away with another brick fence? Maybe? Well, yeah, it's a luxury hotel. Of course they'd have a brick fence around it. That makes sense. So we're just gonna raise this up a little bit more. I think the original track plan had this as a street. Which one could have it be a street and then loop around the side, although I'd have to change my building style because admittedly that's not really oh, I know what I could do. I could just turn it like so, and now bingo, and then maybe move it a little bit further back so that way we don't see the yep, yeah, because I like the sense of like this should be downtown. Like this should be downtown. This should feel like downtown. This shouldn't feel like it's off to the side. Again, see Toronto. Yep. And then we have a road that circles round. And then that road is cut off here with the thing. Yep. Okay, I need one of those Sam sidewalks again. So, this is November. We're coming up to Thanksgiving. Cliched as it might be, I'm going to ask the question anyways and say, what have you been most thankful for this year? Interpret as you will. Could be railroading related, non-railroading related, but what have you been most thankful for? Thanksgiving's is coming up pretty quickly. Although, man, I don't know about where you guys live. Those of you watching US, of course, but feel like this year in particular, there is even more of a rush to get to Christmas than I have seen before. I've seen it before, but something about this year, I just feel like there is this huge rush. I mean, it wasn't. I was at Lowe's. Halloween wasn't even over. It was a week and a half before Halloween, and they had their Christmas stuff. I just could not wrap my head around that. I found that a little bit too premature. Matthew Harris, my family, my grandpa helping me build my model railroad. Ah, schmoopy poopy. That's nice. That's very nice. Great when you can enjoy your hobby as a fan. And now I suppose I should answer my own question, what am I most thankful for? I'm thankful for continued success with my business, Streamliner Media. I'm thankful for that. I've continued to have some really cool experiences with that. And actually, those of you who are subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'm going to be starting to produce shorts on a more frequent... Well, I've never actually produced shorts before, but I'm going to be producing shorts, 60-second videos. You'll get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of the work that I do, because it dawned on me, hey, I'm getting to go to these places and see some pretty cool stuff. Why not share that with people? Because I'm already making videos, but a lot of the videos that I make, admittedly, you probably... I mean, you'll have seen them if they're things like the East Broad Top trailer. But there's a lot of work I do for freight railroads that it goes on their YouTube channels. So you probably haven't seen it. And so I'm going to try to highlight that with their permission on here. I would love to take you a little bit behind the scenes of railroading. There's some pretty cool stuff that happens. And we'll put some haze bumpers here. Kind of doing this as a... I want a moment to think before letting me next kind of move. Let's get a road in there. And then we can put a chain link fence around this, which makes sense. Because I don't necessarily mind this being right next to this. It's a little bit of a transition. Because I do feel like by the time we get to here, this really is Industrial Park, and it should be Industrial Park. So, yep, I dig that. They're here too, though. I'm gonna have to think because, like, as it is right now, it's a little too gray and brown. We've got some red with the buildings, but I want to spice it up a little bit. Gonna figure that one out. Let's get a road in here while I'm figuring that one out. Millennial Modeler. My, as of last weekend, fiance. Ah, congratulations. That is a very good thing to be thankful for. I am, on a daily basis, thankful for my wife. Which, if you're watching tonight, Beth, you know I love you. And if you're not watching, I still love you. I like the street texture. It's a little bit too wide, but we can get down. Speaking of how wonderful my wife is, I think I've shared this one on here before with y'all. As usual, stop me if I have. We both wanted to get married at an outdoor venue. That we knew very early on. And somehow I came up with the idea, which, if I do say so myself, I think was a good idea, of having a temporary garden railroad at our wedding. I do mean a G-scale train set garden railroad. And bless Bethany's heart, she was okay with that. We talked it over with the venue, who said, well, as long as you don't, tear up the ground or leave any mess, that's fine with us. So I'm pleased to say that our wedding had a live steam F-scale, as in narrow gauge running on G-scale track, F-scale East Broad Top hopper train, complete with a combine in the end. And I have my friends were so awesome. Not only did they, so I bought a cubic yard of dirt that was level, spread out to make the track level. And not only did they spread out the dirt and they laid the track before the day of, and get the train running, they took weeds, turned them upside down, and turned them into little trees. They had little I mean, it was not just, oh, there's a cute loop of track. It was a miniature garden railroad. Oh, and I'm seeing the name of somebody involved with the construction of that. Hey, Zach. Yes. That was yeah. So kudos to Zach and crew who put that together, because it wasn't until they finished it and I saw it complete that I said, okay, maybe that idea was a little crazy. It wasn't like in my mind. It's like, oh yeah, this makes perfect logical sense. Sure, I'll build this. It wasn't until after the fact I'm like, oh, yeah, that was kind of a lot. But nobody stopped me. Nobody at any point, not my wife, not my friends, ever said, Nick, that's really too much. You shouldn't do that. They're like, no, go for it. I'm so glad I did. I mean, the day was obviously special and tremendous. I would have been regardless. But it was so nice to have this thing that I love be part of this special day. And the other thing I should add is that we each had our own personal touches. So there I was with my garden railroad. My wife, who is an absolutely fabulous crochet artist, crocheted 10 pumpkins stuffed pumpkins. 10 stuffed pumpkins for this event. Um, and as takeaway items. And so that was her personal touch. So that it was a really so yes. My advice to you, millennial modeler, is have a garden railroad at your wedding. Or probably my real advice to you is actually um, think of ways that it is special for both of you. That you personalize it to what defines you, your like each of you as individuals, as well as your relationship together. Because even though, yes, the trains are my thing, um, Bethany is very supportive, very, very supportive of them, of me doing these live streams, of my business, and so trains are part of our relationship, even if it's not, hey, we're going to go ride on a train together, or we're going to work on a model railroad diorama together, which we are. If you watch Heist, you'll have seen that. But it's just it's part of the nature of the fabric of what we have together, and that's largely a good thing. I mean, because it's my work, obviously there are stresses that can come with that, but it's acknowledging and respecting that that is part of the package. Um, and I'm I'm really grateful that she does. As I try to, conversely, make sure that I am equally respectful of her passions and her pursuits, and making sure and acknowledging that those as part of our relationship too. Man, you got me on a whole kick about marriage and relationships there, millennial. But thank you for that. I like sharing stories with y'all. Zach Reitmeyer, it really set the bar high for future weddings, and none other let me play with trades again. uh, yeah, we'll have to see who else we could talk into. If we haven't talked Millennial Modeler already into the concept of, hey, you should you should have us come. You should invite. I don't even know you, but have us come. We're really expert at doing temporary outdoor garden railroads. Yeah, I like that as a takeaway message. I'll go for that. I will totally go for that. Uh, gotta have fun. And the other thing I'll say about weddings too, and I say this in full sincerity, is make sure that it's you, and that you're not kind of overwhelming yourself by what you feel you should do, quote unquote should, um, and that it's staying true to what you genuinely want to do, um, because I've met folks who are, for one reason or another, feel like they let other people control factors, and they were unhappy with the result, or they kind of let themselves get carried away, and so, and that's hard. Um, so this is obviously advice coming from a complete stranger who doesn't know your particular life circumstances and doesn't try to pretend to know them. But as much as is within your power, the more that you can um, be at peace with it, because it's got to be something you enjoy. Because otherwise, you hype it up so much. If and you're gonna hype it up in your mind to some extent, and I mean, if this is, of course, all on the assumption that you're doing a public wedding, and you're not just going to it just as a piece and getting married, which, admittedly, I was assuming that the whole time. But if you're doing that, that's, you don't have to listen to anything I'm about to say. But if you are doing this sort of public wedding thing, I will say that we had a great time. We had a great wedding. No regrets. Nothing I've seen since that made me go, oh, I wish I did that. I will say though that there was so much excitement going into it, that after it happened, and there's so much planning, um, that afterwards there was kind of this, okay, now what do I do with my life? Um, because I built it up, and I don't regret in how I built it up and what it was. I feel like I was able to enjoy it, but I could have gone off the rails further. I see a scenario in which I that would could have happened. Um, so that's just something to be mindful of. You come for the layout building, stay for the wedding advice. Hope it's useful to somebody out there. Both the layout building and the wedding advice. Uh, and we're coming up to 10 minutes before we do our play session. But I want to know what you guys think. Is there anything else? Because I don't know if we're going to revisit this next month or not. I'm tempted to, because there still is more detailing we could do, and I feel like there might be more we can figure out operationally. I just don't know yet. But we've at least covered the layout with stuff. Covered it with scenery. Oh, I forgot to put haze bumpers there. We should do that. I feel like I need some cars, some autos. I mean, what I really need are some nice backdrops so that did I select the wrong layer? No. Oh, is that one of the tracks that I put on the? Yeah. So some when I was laying things down yesterday, some objects were placed on the wrong layer. Bane of my existences. Oh, I meant to put that as a root layer, and it ended up being a wall layer because I built the walls and then I kept building stuff and forgot to go back to the root layer. Okay. And we can place our haze bumpers in there. So we have the ability to switch out our express cars. And ooh, I'm digging that. Right, so road and cars, methinks. We grab this road. I'm really digging this road texture today. And what I kind of want to do is just start it here. Oh man, I didn't even think. I just had a vision of street running, and then I thought, where am I going to possibly do street running? I don't think that is meant to be a today thing. Someday. Another day, I'll add some street running into the mix. But that day is not today. Oops, that's the backdrop. There we go. Let's get the height for that. And a quick check of your comments. Sure y'all are doing okay out there in the wonderful world of YouTube. Sounds like flip the record over, so to speak. So I'm gonna do that. Here we go. Yeah, even just adding that paved road, like, that looks nice. I realized as I put this on as the first track, or while you guys were waiting for the stream to begin, that it might sound like telephone hold music, and I was hoping that would it be a deterrent? I recently discovered the banger that is the Cisco business hold music. It has an actual name, and I forget the name of it. It was on with some company recently, and I heard that piece for the first time, and it's like, oh, this is really catchy song. This makes me okay with having to hold. It's the one that sounds like it's very synth heavy, And even as much as the phones distort the hold music, it still sounds pretty groovy. I like that. Man, I'm excited for getting some backdrops in place so it can we can see more beyond just the station. Let's put a car or two in there. Because I want a car. I want some color. Ooh, a bus. Oh, oh, I'm gonna have to lock down the station, aren't I? Because otherwise it's gonna. Okay, let's put the station in. Oh, for now we'll put it in the floor layer, just so that it's in a locked layer, and then we can. I probably should have looked up a Greyhound as opposed to a British Bedford bus, but that's a cool paint scheme. So even though it's maybe not realistic for this, and then we'll put a couple of cars. Oh, little details can go such a long way to making the whole thing really sing. Not people. Maybe we could place people later, but not really what I had in mind. Chevy pickup. Sure. A blue one, though. Just so it doesn't look too army. Looks a little bit more. Yeah, let's put it facing that way, and then we'll turn the car that way. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That looks... Ugh. Yes, Millennial Modeler. Life advice and layout building with Nick. I feel like we got very philosophical. You know, it tends to happen. I do get a wee bit philosophical. But I feel like today we got very philosophical about building the... Maybe I need to start advertising that when I'm putting out the descriptions for these live streams. Nick builds a CN themed terminal and also gets into marriage wedding advice. I don't know if that would be a stronger or weaker selling point. I defer to you guys on that particular front. I'm very happy with that. And as we're coming up to 9 o'clock, when we're going to start to play with the thing. Oh, I should fix that wall and just make it the right. Set that to 0. Because by setting it to 0, it then straightens that out. There we go. Oh, I never did put that brick wall. Let's put that brick wall in, and then we'll call it a day. And then do I want to use the same one? No, we should do something a little bit different for this one. Well, this one's kind of fancy and artsy. I mean, it doesn't quite match the brick of the station, but I also do just like it. So we'll put that here, going to here, going to here, I guess. Maybe there, just to give the sense that it's a little bit bigger than it is. And then we'll break up these points. Don't like how uneven that is. Maybe I'll lower that down a little bit. I mean, I want it to not be perfectly straight, but there we go. And then raise that up a little bit. Oh, and then I'll have to flatten the track because the track's going with it. Well, I'm definitely glad I did a little bit of work on this before the stream. Because there was no way we were going to get that done in one stream otherwise. Or I would have gotten... Yeah, I probably spent half or so on it last night. Pull this back just enough so that that curve's a little smoother. Howdy, Iron Horse Productions. Glad you could join us. Different life advice topic every week. Marriage, kids, divorce, career. Well, I hope to not have experience in divorce, and I currently do not have experience in kids. But I'm sure I could come up with other suitable topics of life advice. And I'm realizing I really need more ballast around here too, because that otherwise looks really plain Jane. And I need a platform for this. Good golly. Where are my manners? But I could also just move the track closer to the thing too. I kept it very close to what the original footprint was, but admittedly I could move it like that. Yep, there we go. That looks good. Okay. Man, I clearing my throat is to present the handiwork from tonight, but also just because I needed to clear my throat. Sorry about that, guys. So here we are, Orford, Ontario, because I do view this as an Eastern region thing, where we have our industrial park, our railroad hotel, the Union Station. Well, Union Station would suggest there's more than one company. I guess we could say that CP comes here too. Why not? We'll say CP comes here. The city, the trolley line that I'm so happy about. Yeah. So that is our construction for today. I'm going to delete those engines. I was doing some experimentation last night. Leave things where they are a bit. Now let's talk about, since we're getting into playtime, let us talk about the kinds of things one can do and kind of set ourselves up and stage the session so that there are multiple things we can do. And we might not, and probably won't get to them all tonight, but I don't know. I don't know if there's enough to merit coming back here for a second live stream. I mean, yes, I could kind of polish it and then put the fascia on and stuff, and then we could play with it some more. You guys are going to have to tell me if you want to see more of this or if you want to see something new next week. I don't know necessarily what to do. But we've got a bunch of different kinds of operations we can do. We've got switching. We've got some commuter stuff. In fact, I'm gonna put the commuter stuff here because I want to specifically replicate an out and back as opposed to just through traffic. Okay, so CNX10 version 1 commuter consist. Oh, we should do version 2 because that's going to be more error appropriate with the correct logo. So that's our commuter train that's coming out and back. And then everything else track-wise, we can have run-through stuff. Another time to thank today's sponsor, K&L Trainz, makers of lovely pieces of equipment for trains with a Z, including this nice X10 commuter tank engine locomotive, which we will definitely use to our advantage, as well as the star of tonight, which is going to be Bullet Nose Betty here. And of course we'll renumber her 6060 because I've got a 6060 story, but I'll save that for when we're actually running it, and then we'll put a nice consist of passenger cars behind her, so that's going to represent a main line through passenger train. We'll do a couple laps so we can really appreciate the detail of that. Do I want it facing this way or the other way? We'll have it going this way. So we've got our passenger train ready to go. I want a heavy freight because I want to bring in... it's tricky because I haven't staged anything because the track wasn't done. Because I'd like to show some yard switching, but that kind of hinges on having specific... I guess I could invent some yard moves. Sure. I like having a switch list so I'm switching with a purpose, but I could also just invent a switch list. So this is going to be leading our heavy freight train today, which is also U1F, but just without the bullet nose. I do think I have a mixed freight consist that I can just pull up. Made it with a different railroad in mind, but we can just swap out the power on it. Why am I getting the error? Because I should just be able to place in there. Odd. And it did work after all that. Okay. Mostly New England cars. Oh, but we could put a CN. Canadian National Caboose. I might not actually have a CN Caboose. I have a CN Caboose that's modern. Like, way too modern. Most embarrassing. Welp. Whip. Modern Caboose it is. Totally wrong. But we'll make it work. And American cars. But that's okay, because we're just using it to kind of test. Like, honestly, I kind of just want to bring that train in, and then we'll do some fake switching with it. You gotta finish it off camera, at least. Sorry, Joe, could you retake that? I don't know what you mean, finish it. Oh, finish the layout off camera. Yes, absolutely, I will finish the layout off camera. That goes without saying. I'm gonna finish it off camera. It is going to be publicly released. Millennial Modeler, you like the ground textures around the engine terminal. Great, glad to hear that. More of it, please, but up to the reset. Not sure what you mean. The one pack. Yes, I'm going to have to do some more K&L Trainz shopping to get the pack that has the right caboose in it. But there's our freight train, so we can have a freight train to bring into the scene and switch out. So I want to do that. I'm kind of... Okay, so what I'm thinking is we're going to bring it in. We're going to take off a few of the cars and make up a branch local that then leaves. That's what we're going to do. And then we'll see what that leaves us with. Because obviously, we could stage more things as time goes on. First up, we should save. How is it that I go through 2 hours of route building, pouring my heart out to you guys, and that I don't think to save until right before we play it? I count myself lucky that usually the weather's good and I don't have to worry about the power going out, knocking on wood for that one. CN Wood Caboose. Let me see if I can find a quick one on the download station. Because most of the ones that are out there are the modern Point St. Charles. Okay, not realistic, but better than using a modern one. We'll grab this one. I suppose part of the problem is I'm searching CN Caboose, and what I really should be searching is CN Van, because in Canadian terms, it's a van. There we go. Okay, not quite accurate, but it's better than the Points of Charles. There we go. Okay. So we've got our commuter train, which replicates the ability to go out and back. We've got our mainline passenger train, which we're going to spend some time with to really appreciate the details and beauty of that. And we've got our mainline freight, which we can bring in. We can break the train down. Maybe we could even switch some local cars out. We'll see how we're doing on time before we get that far into things. So, without further ado, let us play. So, and where did it spawn us? Probably into the roundhouse with one of those. And that's another thing we could do, is just hostling power. But we'll probably have a little fun with that when we bring out one of those switchers. So, we're going to start with the commuter train. And actually, I have my rail driver hooked up today. So, I can use that to control the train and not have to remember which key setting is which. Oh, I should see if I could get the trolley running too, because that would be fun. So let me pull up that valley. Yep, there it is. So yes, no overhead wire, but that's okay. We'll just let it do its thing. And we'll set it to that speed. I don't know what that speed is, but we'll see. And then here we are coming into the scene. Oh, that's so cool. Can we take a, can we appreciate how cool it is to have that coming in? I should probably pause and actually make sure I'm lined properly, otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna go completely the wrong place. We'll bring it in onto track 2, and then we'll run the big guy beyond it. And also that can be our runaround. Good. So, now we are set. So coming into the scene. And now this is N scale. So this to me looks like an N scale layout if we're zoomed out at this distance. Okay, the trolley didn't derail at the Y, so that's a good sign. Let's go to track level to really appreciate the detail here. At Orford Station. And now we'll zoom back out and make sure we get the full view of things. I'm going to need to extend that platform clearly because right now it doesn't quite fit all the cars. But that's an easy fix to do. Gilbert Porter. Yes, we want to see a second part to see this completed. What options for N-scale models exist or have to be built? I could do that. Partially, I'm inclined to do it because I feel like I just want to play with it more. I think that especially once we've brought this train in and we've sorted some cars out, then that gives us something to work off of operationally. While that's doing its stop, let's have some fun with 6060 here. So this is the latest offering from K&L Trainz. Throw the headline on there. They have really, every release of theirs, they're upping the ante these days. And I'll tell you what, this one's no different. So this is just an absolutely gorgeous model. I mean, look at the detail on that thing. You've got three-dimensional rivets. I mean, even look at the valves. Like, those are 3D valves. And then if we go in the cab, like, that is nice. We can stick our head out. I just realized I didn't check it to see which way those switches are thrown, so I should probably do that before I get too enamored by the model. And they're all thrown the wrong way, but we'll get them. We'll get most of them fixed. I just don't want to find myself going head on into the commuter train. And throw that one, because I'm actually going to do a couple laps with this, I think, before we actually do our proper station stop. And that is on track. So that means throwing this one here, and those ones are set right. Okay, here we go. So we'll follow this as it goes around for a loop, and then we'll do a station stop to get nice appreciation of the details. Oh. Okay. Right, so nobody saw anything, right? Nobody saw anything, so we know that nothing actually happened. I just spawned in the train, and it just happened to only have a baggage car, right? We're all in agreement on that? Good. Good. I'm glad that we're all in agreement on that point. I'm very happy that we're all in agreement that it was just a baggage car. Silly me. There was never any other cars that were with that train. You didn't see them. I didn't see them. She didn't see them. So nobody saw them. Okay, now we actually have a train, because again we didn't before. And now we will enjoy the part of the show where we bring it out. We've restored it, and now we're running it on the main line. Going through the industrial park. Oh, I like that. This works for me. And see, this is what you get when you do 3D pre-visualizations. You can actually see the train going through the scene, and it gives it a different feel. Oh, that is nice. That makes me so happy. I mean, once we get this yard filled up with some cars, I think that trolley is now going super fast. Oh no, it isn't. That's good. Like that. Oh, that makes me so happy. And now we'll go out for the crossing. Oof. I mean, oh, this just makes me so gosh darn tootin' happy. I love it. Oh, because it looks right. I mean, this looks like it could be a layout. It looks right. And I mean, even if we're viewing it at kind of end scale level, so okay, we don't get to be able to zoom in on the scenes as one does as much with some of the larger scales, but even if you're taking kind of the bird's eye view, it's a cool design. Now, yes, it's for those who love their switching in their yards, but it works. It works. Now, let's go back to going along for the ride. Oh, did I? Yes, that switch. Okay, now all my switches are correct. Yay. So, back to appreciating 6060. We can appreciate all the different cab views that exist. So, get cab views as defined by the sim. So if you like getting your cinematic shots, not that you'd ever be able to get this in end scale, but this is just us appreciating the magnificent work of our sponsor here. I mean, look, the bell clapper moves. If that is an attention to detail, I don't know what is. And since we've put on the bell, we are actually going to make a station stop. So let us get into position. And we'll... how do I want to do this? Yeah, we'll stand right here. This... Oh, that is a scene. That is a scene. Okay. Now, oh, that looks good. Approach medium rights. I've definitely considered building this in IRL many times. I'm just not particularly interested in Steam, so I never got beyond daydreaming. Wouldn't operate the same way outside of the Steam era. Yeah, there's some layouts where I'm like, oh, you could totally change the era and you could change the way it operates. This one, you could. I mean, I can see kind of like a Penn Central, Buffalo Central Terminal thing where you have the station, but it's used by Amtrak or not much anymore, and you change the engine facilities, um, make it more of a yard for locomotives with a shed as opposed to a roundhouse, or it could be a roundhouse still, but it does operate differently. And I think you really benefit from having the passenger operations here. I definitely think that's true. Um, so while 6060 is doing her passenger stop, we'll move back to 47 here, and we'll run around our train. Because that's, to me, part of the charm of this engine. I have to say, even though I'm a CP guy, and most of my collection building is focused on CP steam locomotives. Um, I do see getting one of these in my future. Getting one of the brass ones that, and making it Canadian. So I think you could Arab bend a bit, but like, there's no way you're doing this modern. Um, just because I think the nature of the operation. I mean, even if, like, yes, you can make it modern and still have Amtrak, but you're not going to have runarounds like this. It does operate differently, that's true. I think this one benefits being in the Steam era the most. I think that is true. And see, this is where you could have multiple operators. So your commuter train could be one person, your mainline train could be another. But as you know, the question that I was coming into this with is, because we don't have multiplayer in Train Z, does this work as a single player experience? If I have to manually switch in my DCC controller between trains, can I still feel like I'm getting a busy experience? Because obviously, yes, if I had multiplayer, somebody else could be running this, somebody else could be hustling power. There is more flexibility that way. Um, Joe, transition era would probably work best. Could have some early diesels doing local switching. Yes. Yep, you could do transition era. And some of the what would be interesting to play with is how you use the yard, because I envision it as, as I'm thinking it through. I initially was like, oh, this is a freight yard, so you use it for freight cars and so forth. You could use it as a coach yard, or split the use of it. So maybe one or two tracks are designated for coaches, and other sidings are used for um, other sidings are used for freight. That's the word. Okay, so we've now run around our train. We'll get 6060 out of town back into staging. Which, if I set up track points, then I could have placed the markers in there, and then I could just tell it to go to staging one, and it would just do that. But we'll drive it there manually, because, after all, this is such a beautiful locomotive. Oh, I have to tell you my 6060 story, too, so that gives us an excuse to be riding behind this again. My first model railroad, which is to say the one that I grew up with, that my dad had constructed, was an HO scale, technically double O scale, because they were Hornby Trainz. Well, Trainz before Hornby bought them out. Train back in the 70s made a bunch of Canadian stock. So that was his go-to, because a lot of HO and O scale manufacturers were completely ignoring this country called Canada when it came to being able to show, when it came to their choices of what rolling stock to model. So then Mike's Train House in the mid to late 90s started creating rolling stock. Oh, there's our trolley. Creating Canadian rolling stock. They started painting some of their pre-existing locomotives in Canadian paint schemes, but actually doing a good job of it. And then, and I forget the year, O-scale purists will know the year by heart, I'm sure. Then in the late 90s, so at that point, he made the transition from HO or double O to O-scale. And he was starting to build up this collection. And then Mike's Train House announced their 6060 models. And we it was a pricey engine, so he didn't get it new. He got a used one off of eBay. We and because the guy lived close to Buffalo, New York, we were able to meet him on a drive up to Canada to visit with my relatives. So I like to think of it as one of the most expensive transactions that's taken place in a Tim Hortons because we met this guy at a Tim Hortons in Buffalo, New York to buy that engine and add it to our collection. And it's a gorgeous engine. Mike Trainhouse did a really nice job on it. Not perfect, the tender's kind of a little out of scale, but a nice engine. And a nice engine as done by our friends at K&L Trainz. Oh, and I said I'd make sure that Edmonston made a cameo appearance. So what's really nice, so we tend to, when we talk about K&L Trainz, we focus on their steam engines, and the steam engines are really nice, but the passenger cars on this set too. I mean, look at that detail with the 3D gaskets and everything, as opposed to just pasted on windows. You can see in this view how the windows actually have 3D detail, and we could change the name of the car. So here is the actual sleeper that Rapido Trainz owns in Edmonston, although theirs is in the theme now. But there we go. So that is attention to detail. That is a beautiful set. Thank you to K&L for sponsoring this and sending this set. Do I think it's worth $15? Yeah. It's a really nice set. So that's so what else do I want to do? Oh, let's have fun with the other guy. So this is a UNF without nose. We'll get this underway. We'll do a lap within, then we'll bring it into the yard, and we'll bring one of the switchers over to break it down. SD Pandy projects. I have a 60/60 O scale. It was never painted prototype from MTH factory sale. Plan is it will eventually become 2 rail with a paint job. Nice. That sounds like a good project. So we're going to run it through, which means I need to set this switch back to the correct line. And there we go. Okay. So here we are, coming out of staging once again. My God, that just, I like how this scene turned out. And this too, this feels very self-contained. It feels like if we find ourselves switching cars in here, like we could really enjoy just having the cars in there. Oh, wait, something went terribly wrong, and I'm rooted for the express track. So let us not find out what happens next at the rail yard. Let us instead move that and throw that switch, which it can't because the AI it knows that the train is coming. It's coming around the bend, and we want it to see the sunshine, but we don't want it to see the end. And so that should be far enough away that we can throw the switch. Come on, there we go. Okay, we've got the switch thrown. All right, we're good. So, if you're an N scaler and you have a bunch of steam locomotives and you don't know what to do with them, to have a layout that makes them all make sense, I'm going to call it, this is the layout you got to build. I mean, a 12 by 6 foot, it's not gigantic, but boy, even, and like, I haven't even begun the switching stuff, and I just love the feel of it. I love how much we get space we have. I love the operations we're going to really be able to explore with this thing. And so many scene potentials. Oh, thanks for joining us, Joe. Yes, tune in next month and we'll be finishing this up. Okay, so let us prepare for it to come back into the world. So this time we're going to route it into the yard. We're going to make sure all our switches are set for that. Probably just bring it in on this track here. And... oh, we should totally cut off the power and run it to the... yeah, we're going to... yes. We'll do that as a thing. We'll bring it in, and then we're going to cut off the power, and we're going to take it to the roundhouse. Then we'll bring the switcher out, and we'll yard the cars and do some switching that way. But, man, if ever a plan made me want to switch to N scale. I mean, not that there's any of these steam locomotives in N scale. It's more like if ever a plan made sense for me. Again, I wish it had something. I wish I had the room for a branch line off of this. So that's what, if I had more room to expand off of the original base plan, I would have maybe one of these tracks, or actually maybe take this out and have this going to be a branch line, like it curves this way or something like that, rather than it being an industry. Something like that makes sense to me. But I think this is such a great base of just being able to do so much. Because I wasn't sure that I loved the gigantic yard, but I feel like if you love switching, there's just so much potential you could do with this. Because it's not just about necessarily about switching trains that are going to go east or west out of town. You could build up trains in the yard that go down a third route or something like this. There's a lot of ways you can break it down. Okay, so let us take our power over to the... actually, we might even be able to show some refueling going on with it. I might have to empty the tender a little bit to make that happen, but we'll give it a shot. Oh, and another photo op. We'll have the commuter train depart while this guy's parked here waiting to cross over into the yard. Or into, yeah, into this part of the yard. Oh, we should park it right... yeah, we should have it next to the tower. That feels good. Rather than just behind this brick wall. So we'll bring it back, and then we'll bring the tank engine back for its run to staging. And the thing, too, is that the ability to recycle trains based on the way that the staging yard is designed, I like that. Because let's say you only own one commuter locomotive and commuter train. Well, you could have that commuter train come in multiple times a day. So it goes into staging. Because what I've seen as far as what the Brits like to do with their operating schemes, because a lot of their operating sessions aren't like North American ones where you have a huge crew that are taking different trains simultaneously. The Brits tend to do... one person is running a sequence of trains. So for a layout like this, you invent a sequence of operations with your passenger trains, with your freight trains. And so you can have the same passenger train make multiple appearances. Because that commuter train, so it's coming in, and we could run it into one of the passing yard tracks so that when it reemerges, it's not, let's say, an eastbound, it's a westbound. Well, so this was a westbound, it came in, it turned around and went east. You could have another one that comes in from the west, turns, and goes back west. But it's the same train. Millennial Modeler, yes. N-Scale Steam has made great strides. Broadway Limited, I've seen, have been really pushing the development of N-Scale Steam, so I agree with you on that. I just know that my likelihood of ever seeing this exist in N-Scale is probably... scratch building at best. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure all our switches are set. And this is where obviously you could expand your operations by having you could have a dispatcher who controls your mainline turnouts. You could have a yard master. You could have a hospital. Like you could have so many of the supporting roles with this layout, and have enough for them to do. Because your dispatcher could control mainline train movement, but also take care of arranging trains in the staging area. Your yard master's gonna have their hands full pretty much constantly. You can have one or two. Like this could probably comfortably accommodate maybe 5 people, 5 or 6 people at a time. And I just, oh man, I'm so happy with this. I'm just so happy with this. I'm so glad that you guys are up for seeing me come back to this next week, because I think we could do some more super detailing. Oh, and we got the trolley this time. So we could have some fun with the super detailing, and we could do some more operations. Now that I have the tracks in place too, and those are gonna like stay where they are, I could probably stage something in advance so I could put more cars in the yard and come up with an actual, a more specific game plan. So this has been fun. This has been working out. Um, so let's go back to getting this power put away in the roundhouse. So yes, I agree with Millennial Modeler that there's absolutely enough on the market that you could do this in N scale with Steam and have something to go by it. But I think that for those of us who are into HO, you could double the size of this and make it work for your HO scale trains. The animation on this is a little off, shall we say, but gives you the idea. So it goes in. Because of course our engine is an oil burner. So it's an oil burner. Why do I have a coal tipple? Because we do have some coal fired locomotives, and because coal tipples are awesome. Let's see if we have enough that we can actually have an excuse for filling up with water. Yes. Awesome. And this is why there's enough going on here that you could very easily accommodate you could accommodate somebody whose sole power or sole purpose, their sole power is moving locomotives. Their sole purpose in life is taking the power off of trains, moving them to here, refueling them. Because I see a system of like car cards where you could have the engine's fuel level marked, so the hostler has to bring them and fuel them up. I think that's a cool element of the operation that could be brought in. Let's do the... Oh, yeah. We got to do that. Screenshot time. Oh, golly. That's nice. I wish there was a keyboard shortcut for using the turntable. It's always a bit visually awkward. We'll get that turned around. Oh yeah, we could get turned around and then we could actually watch from the locomotive. If we can actually get turned around. You don't want to click on the train. There we go. Oh, that's nice. Oops, and we're 1 track short. Of course we are. And let's bring her in. Now I really, and I know I feel like I'm a broken record and say this every month. Like now I want this layout to really exist, but I really, really want this layout to exist. I think this is just such a cool operational scheme or design. So kudos to the late Andy Sperandeo, Sperandeo. Sorry, Andy. Um, for designing a really killer layout. All right, let's do some switching. Joey the cat, how did I get the camera to be in the cab? Well, that's the... Well, if you're talking about the cab view, um, that's just using the bracket keys to switch between views. K and L train locomotives have that. If you're talking about the sitting on the ground view, let me think. Like this, that's a feature of Trainz with a Z plus. And if you're into Trainz, you know what that means. I think I went one too far. It's either too far or not far enough. But yes, that's one of the key reasons why I do Trainz Plus is because I do love that view. All right, out we go. So, with the remaining 20 minutes we've got, we're going to bring this train off of the main. And obviously, like, I'm doing this a little inefficiently, because I could have had the switch engine staged over here so that once the mainline power came off, it was able to just back up to the train. But we're doing this as a single-man operation, so that's part of the experimentation of this. Railroad runs at our pace. SD Pandy, well, Kato C11 tank has the same wheel pattern as that commuter tank, so you could print a new body. You can make that commuter engine N scale. You're probably right, but I'm just way too invested in HO. I can't switch to N. Not for something this big. Like, for a small project layout, sure. For a micro layout, absolutely. For, I need hundreds of freight cars and, you know, a dozen steam engines. Not likely. Mm. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that noise. Hello, Wasilan from Brazil. Glad you could join us. We're in a fictional part of Canada today. I feel like we need a caboose track. So that's one thing. Let's put a caboose track in here. Because that's one thing that isn't accounted for that I think there needs to... Well, that was interesting. Why am I not moving? Okay. So, that is the only thing we don't have that I think we do need. I'm inclined to say we throw a switch. Very simple. Track comes off of here. It's obviously shorter. Boom. Caboose track. And you know why it's a caboose track? Or a van track, I guess it would be. Because it's got vans. So it's a van track. Not to be confused with Amtrak. So, that is one thing that I'm realizing we need. Because otherwise we don't have anywhere to stick these beasts. And the thing is that even if our train had come in from the east, and the caboose was on this side, you're still switching the cars the same way. Like, they have to be switched in this direction because of the stub ends. So, you still need a caboose track. And you would just stick the caboose at the end there first. So, we will attach ourselves to the train. And then, how do I want to go about doing this? Okay, I'm randomly gonna say, oh, we have a D&H boxcar. So that D&H boxcar is gonna need to go to the freight station. Um, we're gonna leave the other side of the industrial park alone because if we're coming back next month, there'll be plenty of time to play around there, and we've already really got 15 minutes left anyway. So I'm gonna leave the D&H caboose on a track for local stuff. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is me thinking through the operations based on what we have here. We have 4 sidings at our disposal. I mean, yes, okay. We have 4 stub end sidings, not including the caboose track. Oh, hi, Wit Simulations. Glad you could join us. We've got 4 stub end tracks for switching. For kind of building trains on. We do have these 2 tracks here, although I sort of feel like you want to leave them open for the ability to receive and receive other trains or have other trains built up ready to depart. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could kind of use the space that exists. But I know that... So here's trying to break down the process of how do we break down this train? And what would we be breaking it down into? Well, there's probably going to be another eastbound train. Like, there's probably going to be another eastbound block train. There's probably going to be a westbound, or well, this is a division point. So we're probably splitting cars up into locals. So there's probably a local going west and a local going east. There's the Orford local, which will switch the freight station as well as the industrial park. So that's 3 different tracks you need, or at least 3 separate blocks of cars you create. And then there's assembly. So then there's taking cars from that and assembling it into an eastbound block or a westbound block. So I count 5 blocks. You've got things that are coming in that are being split into your locals. Then you're talking about your block freights that are being created to send stuff over the road long distance. And then you need room to move around in. But see, I think that we have enough room for this. Because you could use some of the stub ends for like building trains up, and then you place them out onto the yards, bring the power out, send it out. Andrew, at a division point, the train would probably pull in on the AD tracks and the power cut off. Yes. So we're definitely replicating the idea that all power is being cut off and put on, except for long-distance passenger. I agree with you on that premise. AD, arrival departure. So yeah, we're saying that these are the arrival departure tracks. We're saying these are where you build up your locals and your... And you could have multiple locals. So you could have a local that's going along the main doing switching, but you could also have a local that goes onto a branch. So an example being, and I really didn't plan this, but we've got the last steam railroad in America. Photography of Owinston Link. Let's open this up because it pertains to what we're talking about here. So those of you who watched the January stream or are familiar with Owinston Link are probably familiar with something called the Abingdon branch, of which there is a photo there. Here's the thing about the local, or the branch train. There was 1 train per day in the 50s. It started out of Bristol, Tennessee, and it went along the main line for 10 miles before it cut off at Abington to go up the branch. So you could have an operation like that for this 10-wheeler, or not the 10-wheeler, this mogul here. So the mogul is staged here with all this big mainline power because it's grabbing its, 6 cars and and maybe even a coach. Maybe you really go full O Winston Link and it has a coach as opposed to a caboose. And that local is going on a completely, so it's going to go east on the main, but it's not the same as your east main local. So you could really split this up into a lot of different operations. Ah, I love operations. I love splitting things up. Okay, but what are we going to actually do for the next 10 minutes? Well, let's do a little bit of switching. So I'm going to say, for simplicity's sake, this D&H car is going to be cut off in a spot where it's easy access, probably down here, so it can go to... I like the idea of because you have this run around here. So I feel like the ability to run around your local cars here is good. So the D&H car will cut off next to the caboose track. And that's the only local car, the Orford car we'll worry about. Then, I don't know if we'll have time for much more than just cutting that one car out, yarding it, putting the hack on the... Yeah, okay. That's what we're going to do. We'll cut out the one car, rest is going to go on a track, and the caboose will go on a separate track. So, let us do a thing. So we're going to, in the name of simplicity, we're just going to take the whole train and stick the caboose on the... we're going to stick the caboose on the track, partially because then we can admire the brilliance of Andy in having this drill track, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this guy up again. About that speed. We'll change it if we need to. So that we can have a mainline train that's just going around in circles. He says, making sure he changes the switch so that it doesn't plow into the rear end of the freight train that we are switching. And this, too, I think is part of the ambience, is that you could be focusing on switching, but you can have something on the main line just going around in circles if you're on your own, and it'll be fitting. Which simulations? That's the beauty of Trainz, though, especially for model projects, is just trying to figure out where things can go and how much it all can really handle. I like your concept you have so far. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you do. See, this is honestly probably the #1 advantage. It's a tie with pre-visualization, but being able to play. Like, here's this track plan. We know that this is a good track plan, but in the articles I've read about the track plan, Andy never goes into detail about what the operations would look like. He just sort of talks in generalities about this is the kind of stuff you could do. But there's no article in which he's saying, okay, here's what tracks you would use for what purpose. Not for this one. That Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy layout I mentioned, the special issue on that, he does write an article where he talks about the yard he designed and the specific purposes of each. Okay, we didn't see anything, right? We saw nothing. Once again, how silly of us. We we have the steam locomotive out on the main line without any cars. How silly of us. We're just gonna move it into here. We're just gonna move it into here. That's what we're gonna... Oh, and actually it's probably a good thing, because otherwise that would have rear-ended the commuter train. Okay, so we are just going to add those cars back on, as you do. Add them on. It's going to keep going on its merry way, and life's good. Life is very good. Okay, so we're throwing that switch and making sure all the others are lined, so it's going to the outside loop. Okay, so where was it? Oh, point is that there's the Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy. When he designed that layout, he had a specific operation scheme in mind for how the yards are used, and that article breaks it down, and that's a really good resource. But for this layout, there is no such resource. So being able to play through it and figure out, okay, how do I envision creating an operating scheme for this is really good. And look at that, like the drill track plenty long enough for us to be able to fit. Um, a train that's going to fit in that siding will fit the full distance of the drill track, so yay for that. Let me make sure we're lined up here for the, yes, we're lined up here for the caboose track. But that's what you get through playing. I mean, yes, you could probably figure it out on pen and paper, but you can, it's so easy, partially because you can place the cars and you can see how long the train is and then figure out what the space is. Oh, hi, Chris Scott. Glad you could join us tonight. We're coming toward the end of our play session, but I'm still really happy that you could see the halfway end result of what we're working on. The Canadian National route looks pretty good. The streamlined train makes it more realistic. Yep, that's the goal. We're going for realism here. And there is something nice about it's a little fast for my pace. I'm going to slow her down a little bit. I'm going to give her like that speed. But there's just something so nice about being able to be switching and watching this train constantly go by on the main line. Like, that's really nice. Oh, like that is a scene. And that's a scene that you can do even if you're not operating as a full crew. Oh, I think I slowed it down a bit too much. Let me go back and just give her a little bit more speed. That'll work. Okay, so we've got our caboose over on the caboose track. We can cut that off. I suppose I should say, too, I have learned so much about railroad operations, not just because of, you know, I've learned so much through doing, but I also want to give a shout out to my friend Casey, who hosts the Virtual Railroad Academy on Twitch and YouTube, but we live stream on Twitch Wednesdays. In fact, next Wednesday we will be live streaming, and I've learned a lot about different railroad operations, especially steam locomotive operation, because she is a certified locomotive engineer and fireman, and so I've learned a lot about switching from her. She's been a great teacher to me, even though I'm also Professor Ozark, or Professor Nick. So you should totally tune into that. If Rudy is still in the chat, Rudy can throw up a link to the Virtual Railroad Academy Twitch. So you guys can check that out next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be, or 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live streaming there. Oh, Andrew, this is Andy Sperandeo. I'm sorry, Andy, wherever you are. And this is Andy's design. This is Ozark Lines. So that's why you recognize. Thank you for dropping the link, Rudy. Okay, so, you know, just to fill out the yard a bit more, we're going to put one cut of cars, most of the cars on one. We'll put the D&H on a separate track. We'll put another cut on another, just so we're filling out the yard a bit more, since it's all kind of random anyway. And then we'll probably call it a night. I mean, we're coming up to 10, and I know I usually say we're 10's it, and then we're still streaming at 10:23. But I feel like once we've got that, and then we'll bring the yard switcher in. That'll be a good stopping point. But I love this. There's something really rewarding about this. Where do I want to stick those cards? Okay, that's a long cut, so I'm going to throw those on there. I just love that it's not just about the running. I mean, admittedly, again, it's all about what your tastes are. Because if you're into the running, you don't get a super long run. I mean, you're bringing the train in. Like, if you're a passenger train, you're either kind of like, okay, there goes my train, or you're bringing it in for a stop. So it's not about the distance of the thing. But in terms of the variety of operations, the ability to accommodate just running straight through, the ability to just watch your train go around in circles, the ability to have complex switching and breaking down and building up trains, having multiple crews running at once. You could, if you were really, you and another person were really skilled at it, you could probably figure out how to make two yard jobs working the same time, because you do have a little bit of leeway in areas like this. You could probably have a second switcher that's kind of tag teaming and helping you to make your turnarounds quicker, but that's the fun of it. That's the fun of the game of it. Matthew Harris, YouTube is not going back to the beginning of your live stream again, just to let you know for late. It usually fixes that after publication, because I feared that was happening last time, and then it fixed itself. So if you're not able to go back to the beginning right now, don't worry about it. You should be able to, by the time those of you who are watching after the fact are watching after the fact, it should all be good. So yeah, so we're gonna throw that D&H car over there, and then I guess that leaves us only with a couple. So we'll put two of those cars in the foreground there. Man, this is satisfying, though, I have to say. This is really satisfying. Oop, wrong thing. Wrong shortcut. And there's our wonderful 6060 just doing its thing in the background, as it does. And I feel like this is a plan that makes the most of N scale. Because to me, other than just the general sort of, oh, you get to save space with N scale, which is absolutely a pro, but you always have that con of, it's so small when you're looking at it. How do you make it immersive? And I think that one of the answers to that is you make it so that you have these big scenes where being this sort of overview, overlord figure of it works. So even though this is kind of the size at which you're experiencing the thing, because you could have all this yard stuff going on, it's not distracting. So I like that. Andrew, Santa Fe Yard Throat has a design setup for dual yard switchers. Page 32 of Freight Yards. I don't have that book, but good to know. Is that what I meant to do? Yep, that is exactly what I meant to do. Yay for doing what I meant to do. So yes, and you could probably figure out how to do that here. Especially if you had more room. But I could see a case in which you have a switch coming off here. You'd have to sacrifice one of your fuel tracks. You'd have to sacrifice this stuff, but you'd have a switch coming off here, run parallel to that drill track, and then there's your second drill track. 6060 was built in October 1944, so it's now 79 years old? Yep. Neato. So, we've got our D&H car set out for being switched locally. Then we'll bring these two cars on this next track. And then we'll store the yard switcher. Call it a night. But this is a layout where, even though, like, once again, our sponsor K&L Trainz, lovely detail on these engines, beautiful locomotives. But I could be zoomed out, and I like the experience of being zoomed out. I think it's a good balance. So yes, yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. So next month, which what date did I say for December? I have to check my own calendar, because I should let y'all know when to expect to tune in. But if you want to know, I should say, if you want to know when the next live stream will be sure to visit greattrainlayouts.com. and click on the live button, and it has the upcoming dates for live streams, which will tell you, as I'm looking at it right now, that our next live stream is December 14th. We try to keep these Thursdays at 7. So December 14th is going to be the next live stream. It's going to be a part 2 to this. We're going to finish off doing detail work. We're going to add the fascia and make it look truly model railroady as much as we can. And then we're going to run it some more because we haven't done any switching of the industrial parks. So I feel like there's more we can do to have fun here. All right. We'll set those cars off there. Because now that the track is in place, I could actually spend some time off stream. Because everything we'll be doing is just scenery, so I don't have to worry about messing up a pre-made scenario. So I could maybe leave those cars, but I might come up with something a little bit more set in stone. I'd really love to learn JMRI. I experimented with JMRI a bit to be able to create switch lists and that kind of things. I find it tough. I feel like Excel might be easier for me. I'm open to your suggestion, guys, whether any of you are familiar with using JMRI first stage in your operations or so forth. Because yes, I can I actually have them right here. I have dice that I use for just rolling and establishing car setups and drop-offs. But I like a program that can randomize it in a way that just feels realistic rather than, oh, I decided this car is going to go here. Oh, let's get a nice side-by-side view of this. Right here. And action. Oh, that is just so nice. Okay. And I will just make our way back. It's kind of too bad we can't, there isn't a way to get straight from, so this is an interesting operational bottleneck, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it gives you more to do. But in this design, all of our trains have to go down the drill track, then back up through here, then pull into engine facilities. In real life, if a railroad had the room for it, you would have the ability, your engine facilities would be back here so that you're talking about having to switch, and this is something you could do if you had more room than what we're constraining it to. You'd have your switch coming off the drill track, and then your facilities come in. And actually, the way you could do it without making it wider is you'd have your switch coming here, your engine facilities here, and then your turntable here. So you're not having to widen the room, you're just extending this peninsula. The advantage of that is then you don't have this whole seesaw move. Because that way your power comes off and boom, it just goes straight in. You don't have this. But sometimes you want that additional layer of operation. It really depends on what you're going for. There's multiple ways to do it. Where do I want a yarder? We'll bring her back onto the turntable. Sure, why not? Oh, let's have a nice view by the tower, too. Let's see. Andrew, I really only use JMRI Panel Pro for LCC switch control functions. Yeah, I understand that. I do find that kind of interesting. Let us switch to the front and really take in the coming through the tower perspective. Oh, that makes me happy. Could dump ash here if we wanted to. That's another thing you could simulate. is locomotives having to have their ash dumped, and then you have to take the hopper or the gondolas out. Oh, and I didn't talk about this. So last note, the one, well, maybe not the one. I've already made another modification, but one key modification I've made to the engine terminal. So if we look at the track plan, you could see that this was designated as a car shop. The thing that bothered me about that is that it doesn't make sense as a car shop. Why would a car shop... Oh, it's listed as a rip track. But I don't know if I buy that. Like, you've got this big engine facility, and you're telling me that that little area is going to be a rip track with a car shop. It just doesn't quite fit in my book. So what I envision that as, although I haven't really replicated it here, is that this would be coal delivery for a boiler that powers shops that we see off screen. It's just, I mean, it could be a rip track. The idea of putting a car shop there just felt, it wasn't of interest to me. So that was another modification I made. Point is, you can take these track plans and you can play with them and you can make them into such different things. And that's what we've tried to do tonight with Ozark lines and turning it into Orford, which is what we're calling the city here. So, there we have it. A successful build and operation session on Orford. Maybe I don't know if I feel like the layout as a whole needs something more than Orford. Leave comments in the description if you have ideas for other names. I like the city being named Orford, but I feel like the layout needs some other kind of name. I'm not sure what that is, but I defer to you guys. So here we are one last time taking a look at Orford, a layout by Andy, who's done a tremendous job of making such a really immersive layout. Immersive from an operation standpoint. Like, you have plenty of very nice scenes you can make, such as the station here. I mean, the station really is a nice centerpiece of this layout. You can have a lot of fun with designing that. You've got the industrial park over here, which lends itself to plenty of detail and so forth. And then, of course, the fun we had making our little street railway over here. Oh, that makes me happy. But there's just a lot going on operationally. And I think the answer to the question doesn't work if you're a single person operating this huge amount of real estate. The answer is yes. I think that it can be satisfying. And we're going to continue next month to break this. We're going to do some more detailing work. And we're going to do some more operating on it to really figure out what we can... how we can make the most of the tracks, because I'm really going to kind of try to spend some time and puzzle through how to use the yard to its full advantage, what makes sense operationally with it, and show that in next month's stream. And if we find ourselves a little bit with some extra time, maybe I'll line up some other layout we can play on for a bit. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, it's great to have you along for the ride for Great Train Layouts Live. One last reminder that if you aren't a member on Patreon supporting the work that I do, I encourage you to do so, because you can get early access to train layouts. Right now, the Arcade and Attica train layout is available for download. It has not yet seen the light of day. It has not been on a stream, but it is a complete 24 by 24 HO scale layout replicating the New York tourist line, complete with its freight operations in modern day. And if you go over to greattrainlayouts.com, you'll be able to download the East Broad Top layout that we streamed earlier this spring. That layout is complete and ready for you to enjoy. You can download it there for free for Trainz Railroad Simulator 19 and above. But great to have you guys along for the ride tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Take care and good night.